Hello and welcome to this episode of the summit, the video summit, Conquering Fear. I have the great pleasure of being talking with Mary Rodwell. She is located in Australia, so she's on Tuesday. And I'd like to allow her to introduce herself. I know her work is amazing, and I know that some of you watching this have wondered about her line of work, and that's why she's with us today. Mary, it's all you.
Thank you, Adrian. I really appreciate your kindness in giving me an opportunity to talk about my work.
My pleasure.
What I would like to do is just give a brief overview. There's plenty of things on the internet that will tell you a bit more about but my background is nursing midwifery. And about 30 years ago, I moved into counselling and became a professional counsellor and worked in all different fields, from grief and bereavement, hospice, adolescent issues, relationship issues, all those kinds of normal counselling areas, if you like. So my experience in that area has been very broad. One of the fascinating things that I discovered through doing that kind of counselling was that people did have unusual experiences that sometimes they were very wary about speaking about, whether or not it was somebody close to them had died and they would feel their presence, or they would feel them around, or they would feel they were communicating with them. And this used to be very confronting. If they were very religious, they used to wonder whether it was real or whether it was the devil, or all those kinds of things.
Yes.
And it was interesting, though, for me, because I've always been fascinated with the weird and the wonderful, the mysteries, why we're here, what's it all about? Is there life after death? How can we prove it? And I was brought up as a Catholic. My focus is slightly broader than a religious mandate these days, given what I do.
I was raised Catholic too, so I understand.
But it was useful in the sense that I understand when people come to me that they will see things through that lens, a religious lens, or another kind of programming. And this is really important because I have to work with the lens people interpret their experiences through. And sometimes that's because of those programming. This is about fear. The fear is often brought through because of programming.
Absolutely.
The programming, this is demons, or this is wrong, or bad, or evil, or whatever. But in fact, they didn't have the programming, they may be far more neutral in the way that they explore their reality.
It seems so weird at first, and we are conscious of the feeling that we perceive, and because it doesn't match with anything that we know, we don't understand it, and it might react with fear from it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is bringing me into how I got involved with people that had encounters. And I don't say abductions because there's a great deal more that people don't understand. Often when we don't understand, we react from fear.
Yes.
It's unknown. Is it going to hurt me? I don't understand it. I've got no information on that. Am I going crazy? All those kinds of things happen when we have a non-normal human experience or an extraordinary human experience.
And this is, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the main reasons that has kept people without talking for many years, of the fear of the response of somebody listening to them. How would they react? And they might even react with fear about themselves. I might losing my mind. I'm getting myself crazy. So yeah, absolutely. And this is very real too.
Absolutely. One of the things that I get on the end of the phone is, you may think I'm going crazy, but when someone came to me to start with, he said, I've heard you're open-minded. There are no support groups for this. For this, people just think you're crazy. And he said, but it's happening to me. I'm waking up with marks on my body. I feel like I'm being taken somewhere. My things happen to her, the children, the relatives won't come to the house because they think it's demons. How, you know, can you help?
And
that was very interesting.
Imagine, Mary, if now still that way, how could it be in the past with so much ignorance and in the past and so much confusion about the devil, demons and all that, and now in these last 60 years, what you were saying at first, the programming that we've been purposely led to believe that we are see that's not true, doesn't happen, and sometimes people afraid of contradicting what they learn or they were taught, they rather make themselves crazy.
And that is the problem, is that we're actually have been lied to on many, many levels.
Absolutely.
There is a truth embargo on the reality of these extraterrestrials visiting us. And there are agencies on this planet that know full well this is true.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt.
You know, and this is important to say, that just because you haven't heard of it doesn't mean it isn't real.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the important thing for me is when somebody comes to me, they want to know if it's real. And it's very important that I have the information that will help them to understand that yes, it is very real, and we are being visited by a range of different types of intelligence. Some of them are very physical. Some of them, you know, we call the extraterrestrials, and they are in guns, from grey guy with big black eyes to blue beings, lizard, reptilian beings, mantis type insect like beings, energy beings, interdimensional beings, transcendental beings, perhaps beings that are time travelers. So this is not very simple. It's very, very complex.
It is very complex,
and,
absolutely. Yes.
You know, so my work is to give people the information they need to work out what's happening. If you're very religious and you see what looks like an angel, could very well be a light being to somebody who isn't religious.
Absolutely.
Again, we use our framework of what we believe in to interpret our experience.
Exactly. There are many depictions of the Sumerians that they describe it, and some of them have wings. We can see them on their designs 1,000 years old. Yeah.
Exactly. So this gets to, you know, because we're talking about the fear, one of the greatest fears is, am I going crazy? If this is real, what do I do? Because I don't understand what's going on. I'm being taken at night. I don't know why they're doing it. What are they doing to me? Are they taking my children? If they are, how can I do something about that? I have, you know, the feeling of total helplessness that they may feel. And if I talk about it, you know, is the family going to think I'm crazy? If I go and see a psychologist or psychiatrist, are they going to think I'm crazy? Am I crazy? If I, you know, and all of these are part of the fear of having an experience that isn't considered. Those are all the things that they will bring with them when they contact me. They want to know whether they're crazy, whether if this is real, how can they deal with it? Who can they talk to safely? How can they integrate it into their normal lives when it's so extraordinary to their everyday lives? So these are a whole range of fears that come in when you're having interactions with these intelligences, whether or not they're more physical or whether they're non-physical. Some will interpret it as, you know, spirits, and sometimes it is spirits. Sometimes it is, you know, Uncle Joe coming and making himself known to you, or Granddad. And it may very well be that as well. What happens when you have these experiences is you become or are a lot more intuitive, a lot more psychic. So you are able to perceive more. So you will tap in what is in the Uncle Joe that might have died 10 years ago, or mum that died, or whatever, but you may also see the little guys with the big black eyes and the bald heads, because it's all part of the same multi-dimensional nature of who we really are.
And that can be very a challenge for people to consider, besides paying bills at the end of the month, to not lose their water, their mortgage, that multidimensional. What do you mean?
Well, one of the things that I say to people when they laugh at people who are mediums or clairvoyants or see energy or whatever, I say to them, and it will be, you know, I talked to some businessmen once in something called Probus, and, you know, they were having fun with the UFO, and I was, you know, oh, we're going to have a bit of fun with you. And the first thing that I started out with was, I bet every one of you in this room has had an experience you can't explain in third dimensional terms. Not one person put up their hand, because they knew. We've all had intuitions. We've all had things we can't explain. Whether we think we're as grounded and as normal as they come, we all have these abilities. We may not acknowledge them. We may not use them. We may dismiss them, but it doesn't mean we don't have them.
Mary, is there a possibility, and this is, I think, the best person to ask this question, is there a possibility that all these abilities that we have are, for the most part, for the most people, dormant until something wakes them up? An event, an experience, somebody close to them passed away, whatever it would be. Can that be that possibility too?
Absolutely. And it's often something like a near-death experience or an out-of-body experience or a deeply personal grief experience that gets people exploring. For some, it's the UFO abduction experience.
I'm sure.
That's the catalyst.
I'm sure.
It's like a modern-day shamanic experience. And the shaman, as we all know, has to transcend human fears to be able to operate in a multi-dimensional world. And this is the challenge. The modern shamanic UFO experience is exactly that. Are you going to transcend your fears so that you can operate in a multi-dimensional world? And that is it.
So exciting. So many people lately beginning to talk about fourth dimension, fifth dimension, that we're going to, and that's why I wanted you here to exactly explain this. Wonderful.
One of the things I want to say is, I'm going to quote a young lady called Tracy Taylor, and this is what she said to me about fear, because that was the thing, that is the theme that you were talking about. And she said this: I was fearful of my experiences because I didn't know why. There has always been an equal exchange. I helped them achieve their genetic goals, and in return, I received my healing and psychic abilities, and my understanding of life has been enhanced, and they also protect me when I ask them to. But understanding can be overshadowed by fear, which stems from limited human perceptions to these experiences.
Absolutely.
So this is the challenge.
Go ahead.
Are we going to go and realize that we are interacting in a conscious, multi-dimensional reality that we are part of in so many ways that we don't understand in terms of our connection to our non-physical reality? And this is the challenge for human consciousness now, and why the star children, whether you call them indigos, crystals, rainbow, children of light, whatever, are different parts of that star child phenomenon. They are all different programs because each has unique abilities, but in essence they are the new human, Homo noeticus, the new, the upgrade, if you like, of where we're going. And through their coming to this planet, and each generation is an upgrade. So that if you have a family, you've had experiences, the children, the grandchildren, it will calm you down. Each generation will be a little bit more aware, a little bit more knowledgeable, a little bit more able to utilize their abilities. So in fact, our children will be our teachers.
Mary, I have experienced so many parents wondering themselves about their weird kids. I know my son is an indigo kid. I know my son is a crystal kid. Well, what is this? How can we help them understand a little better how to deal with this kid? Are they natural born, or are they somehow part, or can they be also part of the hybridization program that we hear about outside?
I think it's complex because we don't have a lot of information, and the ones that do have the chance to do the research and not telling us what's going on. I can go only on my research of over 2,000 cases globally, and the understanding seems to be that it's a combination of those coming in from other intelligences, and their children will say, my family's out there, you are just here to look after me. Often the sense is that that's my family, and I'm here because I've got a job to do, and it's going to be very difficult. I know it's going to be difficult because human beings are so limited, and they have an awareness of past lives, they are mature beyond their years, they will see energies, they often can communicate with animals, and I've got a little 8-year-old locally here that communicates with animals, and he said his mission is to teach you how to understand animals and how to communicate with them. He sees energies, he regularly goes up on the spacecraft, he talks about going with a couple of his friends. They go up there, and he described being in a capsule where he couldn't move, and there were blue beings there, and I said to him, so, you know, what's happening while you're in this capsule? He said, oh, it's my yearly medical exam. No problem. This is conscious memory of his interactions on the craft. And his family is the mantid, the tall insect-like beings which are his family. And he talks about his family with such love and emotion. There is no fear, absolutely no fear. That's his family.
And he looks completely human.
He's completely human. And this is going to stretch a few people in the sense that when he goes up on the craft, sometimes he's in his human, but he's into the mantid form. So his soul essence will move containers and will go into the mantid form. And I said, how does it feel in the mantid form? And he said, well, it's a bit strange. Okay? Now, you may think this is a huge fantasy for a little 8-year-old until you know that at the same time, I was having a discussion. I've written a foreword for a gentleman in England, Simon Parks, who tells me that he is connected to his mantid family. And he described to me that when he goes up on the spacecraft, his soul transfers into mantid form and he helps with the humans. Now, he's 52 years old. He's a town councillor.
Wow.
He talks about his mantid family in the same way this little boy, the Saenz, talks about his interaction. They were speaking about identical things, such as the language. The little boy made this chirping sound, which he said the mantid make when they're happy, and held him above their heads. I asked Simon, is there a sound that these mantid make sometimes? And he said, oh yes, a chirping, trilling sound, and they do it when they're happy, and they hold you above their head when they're happy with you. This is a 52-year-old man in England, and this is an 8-year-old boy here in Queensland. Identical experience.
For how long do you think, for what you know, had extended the indigo crystal? How how far it goes?
I think that we have gradually been upgraded all through history, and to be honest, I believe we're all hybrids.
Yes.
They can't explain. It's a sideways insertion, and it's all to do with higher psychological functioning. So we know that we have part of our star family within us, and we may have many different parts of different ones, from the Anunnaki perhaps right through to, these ones from Sirius, the Pleiadians, all these different ones, some say they come from Arcturus, some come from, one 10-year-old told me, and he came from England, and he told me that he came through a portal in the sun. So he's come to help this planet. This is what the children will say. They've come with a mission, they've come with information, they've come to help with the shift in consciousness of Homo sapiens to become a more aware, more fully functional being. And this is how the children will talk about it. They see their non-physical family. They will often be guided by guides or teachers. They will talk about them as either an orb of light, or they may see them in some kind of humanoid form, or they may see them just as energy. And interestingly, one of the young ladies that calls herself a Homo Novus said that she is taught about the non-physical realms by them. So it doesn't worry her when she has these experiences, because they are teaching her when she astrally travels. They teach her what all the beings are, how to deal with them, what she needs to do. And when you have a 7-year-old, and this is a little 7-year-old that lives not far from here, in a workshop, I asked her if she could tell me a bit about her experiences. And she said, not so good. They took me to another planet to learn how to levitate my pen. I was told to take my pen with me, and I was shown how to levitate it so that I could learn more about how to move objects. 7 years old. Now, what was even more bizarre, in my book Awakening, I have some script that many experiencers find themselves doing, the star languages. And this script can look like many different things, but some of it looks like a shorthand. This 7-year-old looked in my book, she saw the shorthand star language, and she said, well, I can read that. So I said, okay, can you read it to me? She said, yes. Do you want it in the language, or do you want it in English? I said, can you do both? She said, yes. She spoke the language that she was reading. Then I said, so who was the source of that language? And she said, well, I think this one is the Greys. And it was all to do with ecology and looking after our planet. 7 years old. Quite consciously, quite spontaneously, they know. They know, and they're the ones that are going to help us make this transition.
Mary, this is fantastic. Is there any connection with this, with the Adhd, the autism, Asperger's, all those illnesses?
Yeah. One of my recent presentations was at Nexus here in Queensland. I've done an article for Nexus on this, and I want to read this out to you. Now, the lady that has given me this information, I'm tell you some of her. She has a PhD in molecular toxology, a bachelor degree in biochemistry, a diploma in molecular biology. She's had near-death experiences, she's had instant healings, encounters with beings she calls coneheads, as well as green luminescent beings. She acknowledges the intergenerational link that her father and her son have had encounters, and she calls herself a letter person, someone with a combination of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and Asperger's. She believes that individuals with ADD, ADHD, Asperger's and autism do not have faulty genes, but are a human upgrade. She calls letter people. Now, this is what she says about them. It's a combination of genetically improved bodies in a combination with souls from different places in the universe. In the improvement, souls have different frequencies and vibrations depending on their evolutionary status. And these play a role in the activation of the DNA in that particular body. And I believe we have to take into account the collective soul of Homo sapiens. Now, she says, letter people show impairment in communication between the brain halves. Thus, they use one side of the brain for solving the same problem. We say they are dysfunctional. However, it may be to free more space in the brain for solving difficult tasks. Asperger's might be responsible for a higher knowledge, not interested in traditional learning. Now, in her research, she says, I've observed the calculated levels of acetylcholine and dopamine in the brain is higher in letter people. Acetylcholine is formed from choline in the vitamin B family, and letter people need more choline, but also other vitamin B family members because they use more of it. That's the simple for letter people, more vitamin B. She goes into more details, and if people want that information, I can pass it on. But what I will say is what she's saying here. She said it surmised letter people have expanded sensitivities and awareness. This would mean that they suffer with present limited human reality programming. It's easier for them to retain multidimensional awareness if they were not so programmed to present social, limited and inaccurate third-dimensional realities. Now, Dr. William Brown gave me a statement on how he understands the new human, and this is he's a PhD in biology. He also has a huge amount of credentials. He works in Hawaii, and this is what he's saying here. It's not so simple as foreign DNA. It's a combination of genetically improved bodies in a combination from different places in the universe. Said the hybrids are altogether a new species of human. And this is shown by the exponential increase in autistic, ADD and indigo children. The new genetic architecture allows them to see the world in a multidimensional fashion. I believe research would show dormant genetic regions are being integrated into the biological system, and this is occurring in all of us to produce expanded awareness. Their brains are working faster, they have access to more information. In the classroom, learning is much faster than normal. I believe, he says, that they already know what's being taught. The intrinsic understanding of certain knowledge and information goes down to biomolecular level, where sentient activity of the brain actually takes place in the atomic structure of the DNA molecules. It's transgenerational information, and it's encoded within the atomic structure of the DNA molecule. It can be graphic, advanced. The modification of the DNA is more remodeling of the genome to make dormant regions accessible again. Now, he is a molecular biologist, okay? So both of them have got huge scientific credentials, but they're both saying similar things. So if people want to query that, get in touch with me. This isn't me saying this. This is what they are saying about what they understand.
It's so wonderful that these people are willing and open to come forth and to explain this. For so many years, we've been guided to think something totally so different. That's so fantastic. Mary, is there anything that these young, generally parents, can do to support these special children?
I think the most important is and to understand that they operate differently. They don't, I mean, an Asperger's once said to me, Mary, they say that we struggle with socializing. He said, actually, between ourselves, we have no problem because there are no masks. He said, in human society, all these masks are untruthful and they're rubbish. And they're not honest, and we can't be bothered with them. We operate on a completely different level of truth, and we know when someone is talking a load of rubbish and when they're not, and we won't be bothered. So we shut down. that's what we have to realize, that until we become honest and we become truthful, and our thoughts and our thinking convey the truth of who we are, then we are going to find that they are not going to want to relate to us. So this is the bottom line. Listen, be honest about what you don't know, understand are different, and they see reality in a far more complex way than we do. When we're getting 10 bits of information, they're probably getting 150 bits of information. So it is much harder for them to see their reality in the same way. When this little boy told me, when he looks at trees or plants, he's seeing energy. When he's seeing things from a whole different level to reality. They are hearing on far more of a broader spectrum. They're seeing on a far broader spectrum. So things aren't as easy to compute or understand in the way we're expecting them to. We're showing them black and white, and they're seeing colour. So we have to be patient and allow them to grow in a way that feels right to them, not impose our understanding of reality on them, but help them to get a handle on their own understanding of reality, because I am sure they're being this problem is a world that's imposing itself on them that actually isn't accurate.
So it's not about parents or teachers or doctors to tell them, be realistic. What they fear most?
What do I fear most?
What they fear most.
Oh, what do they fear most? Judgment for being different, fear of not being accepted. They're fearful of the way we operate on this planet. Many of them say that they don't understand humans. They don't understand the way they want to harm one another, the damage they're doing to the planet. They fear a whole range of human behavior, because actually they fear that more than they do their star family, who actually feel normal to them. Many planets, it's too primitive. I don't understand it. I don't want to be here. That is what I get.
Learning what I've been seeing lately, and the other part of the mainstream news, learning about what's going on in our rock planet right now, I sometimes feel in the wrong planet too. Mary, and the last one, shifting consciousness for humanity and our part on the big family.
Well, I really feel we are very close to something that is like that, because I do not believe all these amazing new generations that are coming in are coming for a waste of time. So I certainly don't believe it's the end of life, as in terms of it's not destruction, because I don't believe these souls would bother to incarnate if it was a waste of time, because that's just ridiculous and illogical.
I thought about that.
But that to me is just illogical. So they've come because they know it's worth it. They know that they're bringing their skills to help us make a new, have a new reality, a broader, multidimensional, connected one. Because if we are actually now going to become part of, the galactic community of intelligence, then we've got to grow up, stop killing one another, and we've got to realize that every thought and every action is what it affects in terms of the collective of all humanity and who we are, that we're in fact all connected. As this is the bottom line. When we get that, we'll no longer want to go and kill somebody. We will want to share our resources. We will want to heal and become who we really are, which is part of this galactic community, and wake up to the truth of what reality is and exactly what we are. And I can't even imagine how that is going to happen. But everyone that contacts me, whether it's the children or the adults that are in tune at the moment, they're saying it's close. It's very close, and it will change everything in ways we can't even imagine. So I don't think at the moment we can even work it out, other than the fact that I do believe that a lot of these scripts and symbols and artwork and things from the crop circles are all a catalyst or a key to the new human, because we only work with 3% of our DNA. I believe the rest is waiting to be activated, and when it does, the computer, I think there is the downloads that so many people are getting at the moment in terms of, you know, symbols and artwork. I think that is going to be the software that help us understand our new reality. Don't know if I'm right, but it seems sort of kind of logical that we would need new software and help to understand a new reality. And I think all the star kids already have it. And I think due to the 100th monkey, the way that we are affecting each other, I think that will create the wave that will affect all of humanity. I hope so. And that's what feels right and resonates. So we shall see.
Well, the Vatican, I read something the other day that said the Vatican is waiting for the alien savior. So if the Vatican is saying that, we'll see.
We'll see.
Mary, what is your free gift that you have for the viewers?
Well, a whole series of CDs, meditation CDs, and the one that seems appropriate is the Inner Alchemy, Transcending Fear.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Mary. We're out of time, and I know we could continue talking forever. Thank you very much for being here with us, and I'll see you later. Thank you.
You're most welcome, Adrian. Take care.